Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sasha Farba. Ukraine has reported one of the most intense Russian aerial assaults of the war, with combined strikes involving more than 1,500 drones and dozens of missiles over a two-day period, hitting Kyiv and multiple regions and leaving civilians killed, injured, and trapped under rubble. The attacks have triggered a day of mourning in Kyiv and renewed calls for stronger air defense support from Europe and its allies. To discuss the latest, we're now joined by Rostyslav Khotin, Senior Editor, RFE/RL's Ukrainian Service. Good to have you with us.
Hello, Sasha.
So it's an immense scale. I mean, right now also the casualty figures are changing. As of our most recent update, we believe 24 people have been killed, many more injured. That may change as we get more information. So just tell us, first off, Rostislav, a little bit more about the kind of impact the strike has. Where has it really done the most damage? How's Ukraine dealing with it this morning?
Yeah, the rescue operation is over now in the Darnitsa region, district of Kyiv, Ukrainian capital. The death toll stands at 24 people, including 3 children. It's teenage girls. 3 teenage girls were killed and 21 adults. The whole up to 20 units, the flats, were destroyed in one of the units of the big apartment, 9-story apartment block. So the rescue operation continued almost for 24 hours, even slightly more. Russia hit this building with subsonic missile, cruise missile X-101. It was a combined attack against Ukraine, massive attack against Ukraine. More than 1,500 drones were used by Russia, and more than 50 missiles. Various regions were hit by Russian strikes, but the most painful was, of course, Kyiv. So the day of mourning has been announced in Kyiv today, and people, the flags are flying half-mast. It's a kind of solemn, sad day for Kyivites and the whole Ukraine. Other regions of Ukraine also have been hit in the south, in Kherson region, in other parts of Ukraine. So it seems that Russia saved missiles and drones for the strikes, which lasted from May 15th to May for almost more than 2 days and 2 nights. They used ceasefire to accumulate drones and missiles and then use them massively. The percentage of interceptions by Ukrainian air defense was quite high, but because of such a big number of drones and missiles used very actively and constantly, it wasn't possible for Ukrainian air defenses to show the 100% interception result, of course. So they missed some kind of strikes, and Kyiv was the prime target this time.
Mm-hmm. And you also mentioned this temporary ceasefire. We've been covering this as well. Putin had called Trump to try and arrange this for that Victory Day from World War II in Moscow. That ended up happening to some extent on May 9th. As you said, so did Putin just really use this time to prepare for another one of these massive strikes? And if so, what kind of message does this send? How will this also be interpreted, not just in Europe, but also in Washington?
You know, President Zelenskyy called this Russian massive attack with drones and missiles a terrorist tactic used by Russia, quote. And those people who said that Putin cared only about Victory Day parade on the Red Square in Moscow on the 9th of May, and he didn't care about ceasefire or peace, were right in a way. Because indeed Putin cared about ceasefire only for Victory parade in central Moscow. He didn't care about ceasefire, about peace. And Zelenskyy also said that if we see that Putin is using so massively drones and missiles in such a powerful strike against Ukrainian peaceful population, against Ukrainian civilians, about against Ukrainian cities shows that Putin indeed didn't care about peace. And although Putin several days ago said that peace is quite near in Russian-Ukrainian war, but there are no grounds to suggest this. It's quite what's happening is quite the opposite of what Putin is saying. Now Zelensky wants. Now the UN Security Council will hold a session hearing early next week at Ukraine's initiative in New York. The Ukrainian head of Ukrainian mission said that Security Council will discuss this Russian strike against Ukrainian cities. We'll see what will it produce. Also, we know that Zelensky said he had an extraordinary emergency meeting with his close advisors, and they decided that Ukraine should retaliate kind of in a mirror way. If Russia conducts a strike against Ukraine, Ukraine should retaliate. Ukraine should respond to this.
Yeah, on that note, Rostyslav, I want to ask you, let me interrupt you there for a moment, because on that, exactly what you just said, President Zelensky is saying that now Ukraine must respond, a just response. So in your mind, what would that look like? What would a just response look like by the Ukrainians right now against the Russians?
The difference between Ukrainian approach and Russian approach to this war is quite different. Russia makes a lot of strikes almost on daily basis against Ukrainian cities, against Ukrainian civilian population, against critical infrastructure to make life unbearable, harsher for Ukrainian civilians. But Ukraine strikes military targets on Russian soil and oil installation, because oil, that's where Russian petrodollars are coming from to feed the Russian budget, state budget. So there are quite significant difference in approaches, in strategies of Ukraine and Russia. So Ukraine will retaliate, and this night Ukrainian drone strike oil refinery in Ryazan in central Russia. So there will be more strike like that. Zelensky said that that Ukraine should speed up efforts in the West, among Ukrainian diplomatic missions, to pursue Western partners of Ukraine to help boost Ukrainian air defenses. He even said that Ukrainian ambassadors and Ukrainian embassies, their activities will be evaluated by the effectiveness and speed with which foreign partners of Ukraine will provide air defense systems to Ukraine, especially interceptors for missiles, because missiles are difficult to intercept. Unlike drones are easier, but missiles are very difficult. Also, Ukrainian head of Ukrainian drone forces said that Robert Brody said that Russia is expanding very quickly the number of servicemen involved in drone strike against Ukraine. At the beginning of this year, 100,000 servicemen in Russian armed forces were dealing with drones attacks in Ukraine. By the end of this year, he expected it will rise to 170,000. So Russia is expanding. Russia is also building capacities for faster drones, not just Shahed, but reactive Shaheds, which are flying much faster than average drones. They will be more difficult to intercept. So Russia is indeed expanding its drones operations and drones forces within armed forces of Russian Federation. So the times are quite difficult for Ukraine ahead.
Mm-hmm. And one thing also, which is playing all to this, I'm curious on your view on this, Rostyslav, is the meeting right now between a backer very much of Russia, and that's China, although it's not that as official as some people say it is. Donald Trump, U.S. President, meeting Xi Jinping right now. How much do you think Ukraine will be discussed? How much leverage does China ultimately have? Any impact from those two leaders meeting?
Ukraine will be discussed definitely. The Russian-Ukrainian war will be discussed definitely, but unfortunately for Ukraine, it won't be number one point on the agenda of American and Chinese leaders. They will discuss Iran, of course. They will discuss tariffs. They will discuss rare earth minerals. They will discuss high-tech companies. They will discuss Taiwan, of course. Ukraine also will be discussed, but kind of not number one or number two priority. It's slightly lower on the list. But the expectations in Ukraine, the understanding in Ukraine is that China and America indeed are the both are key countries which can persuade Putin to stop this war, to make a peace with Ukraine. Especially China could use its leverages of influence over Moscow, and Xi Jinping has such a close relation with Putin, and he can persuade Putin to stop this war, because it's not in the interest of the United States and China, indeed, for this war to continue, especially when there are no ending in sight and peace track has stopped. There are no peace negotiations now between Ukraine, Russia, and American side. So the understanding in Kyiv, and the foreign minister under the ECB has said that China and America are indeed two key countries who could stop this war.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think just covering this right now, one of these largest strikes across Ukraine, as you said, that makes the prospect of peace negotiations very, very, very difficult. Look, thanks for that. Rostyslav Khotin, senior editor at RFE, RL's Ukrainian Service. Always a pleasure having you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sasha.
And thank you for watching. That concludes World Talks, but stay right here on TVP World for more news and commentary. Goodbye.